Alright, Jesse, we gotta figure this out. What's your game plan? Well, first I'm going to normal summon a Hydro Geddon. Then I am going to attack his Danzaluk, which allows me to summon another Hydro Geddon. But then I'm going to go into my main phase, which I probably should have used Monster Reborn first to bring back my Geddon. I could have done that before attacking, but I was concerned he had a trap card. But afterwards, I bonded them using a really specific spell card, bringing out Water Dragon, so all of his fire monsters were just flubbed. What the hell are you talking about, Jesse? Science. Yeah. Welcome to Fixing Yu-Gi-Oh, where we use the powers of game design and hindsight to fix the many, many issues of early day Yu-Gi-Oh. My name is Prunk, and today we are tackling on elemental energy. E-Heroes get some much needed support this time around, which is really nice. We get to see Yugi's night cards, which are they do what they're supposed to do. They're not good, but they were played. And they're just the basic swarm. They get to make their debut. I think we can all agree that Dark Worlds are good. They are consistent throughout. They've been consistent throughout the years, even though they haven't been meta the entire time. They've always been a consistent playable deck. So obviously they don't need any like major changes. The one thing I would really change with Dark Worlds is to kind of remove the cost aspect to it, or just to make it a little bit more like to clarify it better. A lot of times when people were deck building, it was like, oh yeah, this is I could play this, and like, oh no, that's a cost. So maybe put in Dark World, say when this card is discarded by a card effect, and in parentheses put not cost. That says to players that there is a difference in the spell cards that they play. So that way they would have to research and kind of really understand it better. But I think it is a better clarity thing for those cards, although it's not necessarily a change to how they work or function. So that would be my pitch for Dark Worlds. But looking at the e-heroes again, just a lot of them are a bunch of duds. No, duds, not dudes. Like let's the fusions are mostly fine, but let's look at e-hero Tempest. So he reads he needs an Avian, Sparkman, and a Bubbleman all to be fusion together. When it must be fusion summoned by and cannot be special summoned by any other ways. Understandable. You can send one other card you control to the graveyard. Target one monster you control while this card is face up on the field. It cannot be destroyed by battle. So you use four materials, three monsters, and polymerization to bring out a card that sends another card to the graveyard. So you're negative 5 or 4 at this point, technically, to protect another card that can't be destroyed by battle. Thanks, Konami. You're so great at making cards. Look, this card was cool in the anime, but we really it does need a bit of a rework, and we don't have to stretch that far. My fix: when this card is fusion summoned, target one other card on the field. That card cannot be removed from the field while Tempest is on the field. What that means is you have an obligation to try and protect your Tempest. You will play cards that will protect him from destruction, and you can also save another card that could be something that is really hindering your opponent. Like imagine having like Kaiser Coliseum on the field with this guy. Like it would be really great. Just a nice strong floodgate that can't be destroyed, and you can't get rid of him until this is on there. Like it would be a cool lock, and it does prevent like some e-hero locks because the card has to be fusion summoned. If you get another E-Hero onto the field, or Tempest on the field, and you can protect this one to protect that other card, I think that sets up some cool plays. But that's unlikely, like to get two of these guys out on the field at once. I mean, it can happen, but it's not going to be likely. And overall, it just feels like it's a much better effect. So you're just not going negative 4 cards to activate this one effect to protect another possibly card that doesn't exist because you just dumped 3 cards onto the field to bring this guy out. It just doesn't make sense that this card would ever get printed as it is because like I don't think Konami knew how to really make some of these cards, and it's pretty clear. This guy I think is fixed at that point. It has its protection, or it's protecting another card, and you are hopefully playing other cards to protect itself. I don't remember if it was something that like we're gonna be getting a lot of like support e-hero cards, but we talked about like just my body as a shield. I like it a lot as it is, and or as it has changed too. So I consider that fixed. But other than that fusion card, let's look at like Feather Shot, which basically says attack multiple times, but not directly when you have an Avion on the field. the guy's 1k in stats. Like, even if you have Skyscraper onto the field, like, you might clear a couple monsters out, and that's cool, I guess, but otherwise, nobody is ever going to play this. So, my pitch for this card, target a face-up Avian on your side of the field. It can attack each of your opponent's monsters once. If you have destroyed all monsters on your opponent's side of the field, while this card, with this card effect, you may attack your opponent directly once. It's slightly better. It still outs massive scapegoat tokens. If you have Skyscraper out, it does out a lot of basic monsters, and it still gives you an extra 1,000 direct attack. Is it good? Maybe we can do something along the lines of while you control a card that has Avian in its card text or name, so that way you could play with like Flame Wingman, which would be broken. But honestly, as it stands here, it's playable. It may not be played, but it is playable. Um, I think having the card effect in name would be really cool as well to give this card some real flair and get that like Flame Wingman support as well as you are trying to get out with the bosses. So maybe something along those lines for this card, but at least as it stands now, it's better and it is playable because you can still get that extra swing into your opponent. But I would really like to see it with the fusion monster material being able to be used with this card as well. So that's kind of my pitch. I think with Flame Wingman, it would definitely be broken, but that deck just doesn't have that big kill potential anyways, especially if we're comparing it to like Cyber Dragons and Cybernetic Fusion and stuff like that. So I think this could be that deck's like big kill potential card if they have 2-3 cards out on the field or normal monsters on the field, and you bring out this with Flame Wingman. Oh god, the burn damage would be so great, and it'd be so juicy, and it would be so satisfying to play that out. And it's a big swing out of nowhere, which it feels bad for the opponent, but you as the player playing E-Heroes who don't have that big swing of a card, this could be that deck's power bond in a way. So that's my pitch for that one. Featherwind is a card that protects a 1k vanilla monster, rating that while Avian is on the field, you can negate a spell and trap card. Just, again, my kind of pitch would just be go along with it has to be like while you control an Avian or a fusion monster that created using Avian or Flame Wingman as a material, and then negate. It kind of fixes with our Tempest move as well, where we can play this with Tempest, have extra protection on Tempest, and I like that a lot, just to kind of give them some protection built into their class. You have to have Avian or Flame Wingman or any of those cards to really get that setup, but it's cool. It gives the deck unique like properties, and again, it's just protecting the hero. The heroes protecting other things or other heroes. It makes sense thematically, so that's I think a great card as well. Hero Barrier, negate the attack to a E hero. Just we would just play Wabaku. Like it does the exact same thing, but it's better because it doesn't have to be an E hero. New Hero Barrier, we can just say when a hero would be destroyed, it is not. And this gives them that protection for like my body is a shield. I guess I kind of messed up earlier when I talked about it. So surprise, that was a spoiler. I did make that card because I think that E-Heroes again need their protections because those fusion cards can be do take a lot of resources to make, and realistically, those fusion cards are often not that good compared to some of these other fusion cards, especially the ones that we've made recently. But just even at this time period, they don't have that big of a push, and there's a reason why nobody played E-Heroes. So by us giving them these protection cards built in, I think Control Hero could actually be meta viable, and they should be. They were the poster deck, but they just never got their real love and support here. So I think some of these cards, just really getting buffed, these support spell cards, we don't have to touch the E-Heroes that are iconic as they stand, but just giving some of these support cards their love, I think Heroes could have really stood up, and I think that was the big miss that Konami didn't do. And it's unfortunate because I would have loved to see a bunch of E-Hero decks at this time. Now that I have perfected E-Heroes, let's talk about the Familiars. Before we said that the Charmers are side deck cards, and now we get to play the upgraded versions, the Familiars - Possess. Before this, we never actually made that elemental changing card that I kept on spewing out about. So here's Climate Adaptation. It's going to be a continuous spell. And once per turn during your main phase, you can change the attributes of all face-up monsters on the field to either Earth, Wind, Fire, or Water. Now that that's fixed, I think that the Charmers can actually get some good play. And again, they are side deck cards, so taking control of different people's stuff would actually be good. But let's look at the familiars. All of them currently have the following effect. You can special summon this card from your hand or deck. That's impressive, Konami. Okay, we're going that way already. Interesting. By sending one face-up X Charmer and one face-up X attribute monster you control. Meaning, if you have fire on the field, you need to have fire on to bring out fire from deck. You need fire on the field. Fire on the field. That makes sense. If this card is special summoned by its own effect, attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing damage. Okay, so obviously it's pretty bad to sacrifice two monsters to special summon a monster with 1850 attack just to get piercing. So I like the idea, but let's come up with something even better. So here's my pitch. 2K stat lines, making them slightly weaker than Cyber Dragon, because they can be brought out from the deck. While you control a face-up Charmer that shares this attribute, tribute that monster and special summon this card. When this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, special summon that tributed monster from your graveyard. So why is this better? Because we are removing that deck special summon from deck stuff. I do try to avoid that because it leads us to modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, which is broken as all hell. But other than that, it does give us a better stat line for a special summon sitting at about 2K. It does give us a float that our floater could potentially steal an opponent's monster if you're playing that trap card that changes, or I'm sorry, not trap, continuous spell that allows me to change my opponent's monster's attributes. So steal the thing after being smacked over, it's pretty good. It means that Charmers can stay a consistent threat. It also means that your opponent has to have basically two outs to really out one card, which is good in terms of value compared to other decks. Basically, how I envision this is if you manage to out my big Charmer, I'm sorry, Familiar Possessed, and that dies, and now I get my little Charmer out. So now, if I have that spell card that's going to allow me to take it, change your attribute, I can steal it if you don't have another response to this other card. So the player has to constantly think, I'm not, if I'm outing this, I'm not just outing this, I need to out the other one. Otherwise, I'm losing my monster and I'm losing a lot of advantage. So I think that is more unique in a deck theme as well than just it can special summon from the deck and has piercing with a low stat line. It also gives us reason to play all the different types of familiars, so you could basically play a very similar deck throughout the entire thing. But it just this deck does really rely on the made up spell card to change attribute. So there is one last change I'd like to add to these guys. While this card is in the graveyard, this card can be banished to target one face-up monster on the field. Its attribute becomes this card's attribute. This effect cannot be the same used the same turn it was sent to the graveyard. Okay, so now that spell card, although good, it's kind of not necessary. You don't have to play it, but if you're getting set up, like it's helpful if you're not set up. It's great in the early game, but really bad late game if these guys are coming out. And again, these cards can only really hit the field if they are milled or discarded or special summoned. So like you have to get these cards into the graveyard if you're trying to gain that one extra effect. But if you do that, they can't be special summoned, so you're not getting your floating aspect to it. So I like that a lot. And again, it makes it so that way the deck isn't relying on just one spell card to make it work. These familiar possessed have great stat lines. You're probably gonna play like I'm thinking the ratio, it'd probably be like two for every one kind of familiar because that's eight. So if you do fire, wind, water, that's eight, and then four, that's 12 monsters dedicated to this kind of strategy. And they're all going to be similar stat lines and stuff like that. So it's basically like you are playing that. You could play at best, worst case scenario, you're playing three of each, and then maybe one of or two of the big familiars, or maybe you're just doing like, oh, I'm just going to do 3, 2, 3, 2. I don't know, like whatever the ratio would be for the deck. But I like this a lot, and I think it can be these guys would eventually be able to get splashed into several different decks. So now they're not so much as a side deck guard; they can be or like the E-Dragon of I'm gonna put fire this guy in my fire deck. I'm gonna put Blaster in fire, put Tempest in water. Like they can be splashed into a lot of decks, and I think they can be used long term without hitting the ban list because of this. So the deck can still be really clunky. I don't think it's necessarily good, but it's definitely a playable archetype that can be splashed into several different decks. If you're playing a fire type, if you're playing a fire deck, you're probably going to play these fire familiars. If you're playing a water deck, you're playing the water familiars. So And then, like, eventually when we get those special summon like Gigabyte and things like that, they come out. I think we can have some real more fun, but that's going to be in the future. VWXYZ dash Dragon Catapult Cannon. What the do you guys want me to do with this thing? You want me to fix this? Sure. This is a combination of the XYZ fusions and the new VW fusion card. It currently says you must fusion first be special summon from your extra deck by banishing the above cards you control. You do not use polymerization, so it's contact fusion. Okay, that's fine. Once per turn, you can target one card your opponent controls, banish that target. Okay, good effect. When this card declares an attack of an opponent's monster, you can target the attack target, change the attack target's battle position. Flip effects are not activated. So it is a really good stat. It's a really good effect. It is a boss monster through and through, sure, but the summoning conditions in this day of age don't exist. You are not going to be able to summon this card to the field ever. This is like a I need soul charge or like something to make this card work. It doesn't work for this time period, and therefore it was never played. They have to have all these cards on the field to like get this big mech out, and the easy option to make it playable is just banish you can instead of banish you control, just banish cards from field or graveyard. His effect already banishes stuff, so banishing your old cards makes sense. His effect like is great for that. And if you do manage to get the XYZ out already, you already put in a lot of work to get him out. And same thing with like the VW guy. So you manage to get XYZ out naturally in some form. Like this isn't a card you can instantly just drop on your opponent. It's not a BLS. It's not something like that. You have to be able to contact fuse XYZ, which if you remember in the early Yu-Gi-Oh episodes that we've done, is tough but doable to bring this out. And you also basically needed to do the same thing with VW, but getting them all 5 cards out on the field at the same time to be able to do this that's not going to happen in any stage of Yu-Gi-Oh! So having them all just be banished from the graveyard, I think is completely appropriate for this card. You've put in the work to get XYZ out already. You've probably put in the work to get VW out. And that's the only real fix I think that we need to do. And if we do that, then it puts it in power line with BLS, which is just a significantly easier card to meet the conditions to summon this monstrosity that can be splashed into any deck. But this guy, you're building a deck around it. It should be easier to summon the BLS, or not so much as easier, but it should be competitive to that card if this is your big glowing boss monster. But otherwise, it's a fair end game card. It does as it does banish and force monsters to attack mode. It's a great boss monster, but the summoning conditions are too high, and I have no idea how you'd even make this even in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! If you could. So let me know in the comments if you can make a VWXYZ Dragon Catapult deck with current Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards consistently. I don't think getting those 5 cards is going to be possible. So we're just banishing. If you're doing it throughout the game period, then sure. But otherwise, all in the field at once, no. All right, so let's end this video by talking about the intro. We have introduced attribute changing cards. So Water Dragon is now a fusion card because that's obvious fix, and it's combining 2 cards together, so it should be a fusion. So we could just delete Bonding HTO, which is the card that uses Hydrogeddon and Oxygeddon to become this Water Dragon. But I am not into that as much. I do want to change the name to just Bonding Elements. And let's create more elemental dinosaur cards because I feel like that is a big miss on a cool theme and cool archetype that we could have done. It would have been the ultimate nerd archetype. I'm not going to bust out my periodic table, mostly because I barely passed chemistry in high school. But creating a series of periodic table dinosaurs sounds great. And so here's a few pitches with that. But first, let's talk about Water Dragon that does require 2 Hydrogeddons and an Oxygeddon. So my pitch for it would be This card can be special summoned by the effect of bonding, and if so, gains the following effect. The attack of all your opponent's monsters becomes 0 and destroy all fire monsters on the field. So that is if it gets the bonding effect. If it was special summoned by any other way, destroy a fire monster on the field. I feel like it keeps its theme alive, and it can be combined with our new climate adaptation, which I really like. It could be played in our fire, like Charmer familiar deck as well, to just get out a cool boss monster that can like target different things. I think it's really neat as it is, and I like it. And as far as Hydro Geddon and Oxy Geddon, Hydro Geddon to bring out another Hydro Geddon is cool. It's fine. Oxy Geddon when destroys a Flict 800 isn't quite in theme, but it's okay. I don't think it needs to. When it destroys a fire type, I'm sorry. Like I think it should just be when this card destroys a monster. Maybe I don't know. That one's a little weird, but let's just pretend it's fine as it stands. But I would like to add cards like Nitro Geddon and Lithium Geddon and Baron Geddon, or like I don't know, just look at the periodic table and make it a dinosaur. That's I think would be a cool, unique archetype. We can have like Nitro Geddon, who would like just let you draw something. Lithium Geddon, which makes your opponent high. Like I don't care. I just want dinosaur periodic elements. So I feel like there are just a lot of countless like combinations that we could do, and yeah, like I don't need to go into a specific archetypes about this. I'm not going to fantasy book an entire, but I'm not going to book this entire dinosaur archetype that doesn't exist. I don't want to just create random cards and show off, hey, these are my custom cards deck. Haha. I did that with Gate Guardians enough. So that's how I'm going to end it, guys. I think we fixed like the bad E-Hero support. We fixed Charmers, which now they are a really cool themed deck that we get to play with the elements. It's not a bad haul for a 60 card set. So if you guys like this content, please like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. My name is Prunk, and I will catch you guys next time for Shadow of Infinity.